You are standing inside the outer city of Beijing, 1616, just after dawn, near a narrow street that runs along a section of the gray brick wall. The ground under your shoes is already damp, not from rain, from what leaked here overnight and has not yet dried. Your first breath carries smoke, old oil, and something sour that sits low in the throat. It does not pass. The street is awake before you are ready. Wooden doors slide open a hand's width. A man squats against the wall, his back turned, robe hitched without comment. A cart creaks past so close you feel the grain of its wood brush your sleeve. The wheels cut shallow tracks through the mud, pushing darker liquid toward the gutter. No one looks down. Above you, tiled roofs overlap like scales. Drips fall from their edges, slow and patient. Somewhere behind a wall, an animal screams once, then stops. You do not turn. Neither does anyone else. A woman steps around you without apology, carrying a bucket that sloshes against the rim. A drop hits your ankle. It is warm. The street narrows further ahead. Bodies thicken. Cloth presses against cloth. You smell breath, sweat trapped since yesterday, boiled grain already turning. A child coughs into open air. The sound is dry, practiced. Feet keep moving. A bell rings once in the distance, not to warn, just to mark that the day has begun. You are already in the flow. Stopping would mean being noticed. You let yourself be carried forward as the city opens its eyes, indifferent to whether yours stay open or not. Stop 1. City gate passage morning pressure. You are pressed beneath the shadow of a city gate where stone sweats cold even in daylight. The passage narrows as it funnels people inward, and the sound changes immediate telefoots, thudding hollow against brick. Voices flattened by the arch above your head. Guards stand to the side, not watching faces, only flow. Their hands rest near wood and metal, unmoving. You are pushed forward before you can slow. The air is thicker here. Breath lingers. Someone ahead of you stumbles and does not fall, held upright by bodies on all sides. A shoulder drives into your ribs. You feel it, then feel it again from the other side. A man spits onto the stones. It lands near your foot and spreads as others step through it without breaking stride. Carts are forced to unload before entering. Sacks split open on the ground. Grain spills and is immediately ground into paste underfoot. A woman crouches to scoop some back into her sleeve. A boot comes down inches from her fingers. She does not look up. No one waits. Water runs in a shallow line down the center of the passage, fed by runoff from inside the walls. The guards shout once, not in anger, just rhythm. The line moves. The gate does not care who passes through it, only that passing never stops. Stop 2, Inner Market Street late morning wait. You are inside the market street before the sun climbs high enough to clear the roofs. The space is already full. Stalls lean toward each other until only a thin corridor remains, and you move through it sideways, guided by hands at your back and elbows at your chest. Canvas awnings hang low, trapping heat and smoke. The smell of cooked grain mixes with raw flesh and stagnant water. It settles on your skin. A butcher works without pause. Blood runs from the block to the street and disappears under feet. Flies gather where they can, then lift in a dark sheet when someone waves them away. No one steps back. A woman tests a cut of meat with her thumb, then wipes her hand on her robe and reaches for coins. The butcher's knife never stops moving. Buckets are emptied where there is room. Liquid splashes against the legs of the stall, then spreads toward you. You feel it soak into the edge of your shoe. A boy drags a basket through it, the rim scraping stone, leaving a line behind him. He coughs once, sharp and wet, and keeps walking. Voices rise and fall, but never clear. Prices are shouted. Insults pass as casually as greetings. A man argues, then laughs, then spits again, all in the same breath. Above you, meat hangs in the shade, dripping slowly. You do not know onto what. The crowd presses forward. The street does not widen. By the time you reach the end, the smell has already followed you. Stop 3, Communal Well Yard midday stillness. You step into a yard that should feel open, but does not. Walls rise close on all sides. Their plaster cracked and darkened by years of damp hands and leaning backs. The well sits in the center, stone lip worn smooth. Rope grooved deep where thousands of pulls have cut into it. People cluster around in tight rings, waiting without forming a line. You are absorbed into one. The bucket comes up heavy and slow. Water slaps against its sides, spilling before it clears the rim. Drops strike the ground and splash onto ankles and hems. No one steps back. A woman lowers her own container directly into the well before the rope is pulled clear. The wood knocks against stone. The water clouds briefly, then settles. The next bucket goes down. Someone rinses a cloth at the edge, twisting it hard. The runoff runs back toward the opening. Another person dips a ladle and drinks immediately, lips pressed to the wood. He wipes his mouth with the back of his hand and moves aside. You are pushed forward into the space he leaves. The sun is directly overhead now, but little of it reaches the ground. Heat gathers instead, trapped between walls. The smell here is quieter, but heavier wet rope, old stone, bodies standing too close for too long. A child leans against you, his head resting briefly against your arm. His skin is hot. He is pulled away before you can move. The rope creaks again. The well does not empty. The crowd does not thin. When your turn comes, there is no pause to decide whether you want what you are taking. Stop 4. Alley Kitchen's afternoon heat. You turn into an alley where the light thins and the air thickens. Cooking fires line both sides, set low against the walls. Clay stoves glow dull red, fed with scraps of wood, husks, anything that will burn. Smoke has nowhere to go. It clings to the alley, to hair, to the inside of your mouth. Breathing becomes shallow without you choosing it. Pots are packed close together. Lids rattle as they boil. Someone lifts one and stirs with a stick darkened by use. Steam rolls out and carries the smell with it grain. Fat, something sour underneath. A ladle dips, then drips back into the pot after touching a mouth. The same ladle moves to the next bowl. Grease runs down the stone and collects in shallow depressions. Your foot slips slightly. A hand grabs your sleeve, steadying you without looking. The hand is slick. You do not check what from. A woman dumps ash from her stove directly into the alley. It scatters, turns to paste where it meets liquid, and is immediately worked into the ground by passing feet. A dog noses between legs, ribs sharp under its skin. It stops at a spill, licks once, twice, then is kicked aside without force or anger. It moves on. The fires continue to burn at the same height. More fuel is added. The alley grows warmer as the day leans forward, and there is no path through that does not brush against heat. Stop 5. Courtyard housing late afternoon wear. You enter a residential courtyard through a narrow opening that barely breaks the wall. Inside, the space is shared by too many lives. Doorways face each other across packed earth. Laundry hangs low on lines, brushing faces as people pass. The smell here is old sleep, sweat, damp fabric that never fully dries. Someone repairs a shoe on the ground, needle flashing briefly in the light. Scraps of leather and thread lie where they fall. A child crawls through them, then puts a piece into his mouth before a hand pulls it away. The hand does not clean his fingers. He rubs them on his trousers and sits against the wall. Water is poured from a basin without warning. It splashes across the yard and runs toward the drain that never quite clears. A woman steps through it barefoot, carrying a pot balanced against her hip. Her feet leave dark prints behind her that fade slowly. A man relieves himself in a corner half screened by a hanging mat. No one turns. The sound blends into the low noise of the courtyard. Voices rise from inside the rooms, thin through the walls. Coughing repeats, then stops, then starts again somewhere else. The air does not move. You feel it settle on your skin. There is no private space to retreat into, only thresholds that are already occupied. As the light shifts, nothing changes except the angle of shadow. Stop 6, Night Patrol Street Dusk Constriction. You step back onto a main street as the light lowers and stretches thin along the stones. The day does not end here, it tightens. Shops pull their fronts closed, leaving only narrow gaps where light leaks out in yellow strips. People move faster, closer to the walls. You follow without deciding to. Lanterns are lit one by one, their glass already clouded. Smoke darkens them further. Shadows break apart and rejoin underfoot. A patrol passes, boots steady, faces unreadable. They do not look at you long enough to remember you. A shout carries down the street, sharp, then disappears into the noise. No one changes direction. Waste that was ignored all day is now harder to see. You feel it before you recognize it, soft underfoot, then slick. Someone behind you stumbles and grabs your shoulder. His grip is tight, urgent, then gone. He does not apologize. You do not turn. From an open doorway, a woman throws out the remains of a meal. It strikes the street and spreads. A rat darts in, then another. They move quickly, practiced, retreating when feet come to close. Above, windows close one by one. Sounds retreat indoors, but do not stop. The street narrows again ahead, swallowed by shadow. The lantern light does not reach the far end. You are already moving into it with the others, because standing still here would mark you. And being marked would take more time than the street allows. Stop 7. Temple back lane night compression. You pass behind a temple where the street narrows into a service lane used after dark. The walls are higher here, their surface is uneven, catching almost no light. Incense smoke drifts from somewhere beyond the bricks, sweet and stale at the same time, mixing with the sourness rising from the ground. The smell does not belong to one place. It fills the space completely. Figures move close without faces. Sleeves brush your hands. Someone pauses long enough to block the way, then steps aside without a word. A bucket tips in the darkness. You hear liquid before you feel it spread toward your feet. The sound is soft, final. It joins what is already there. A small fire burns near the wall, barely fed. Paper curls and blackens, then collapses into itself. Ash lifts briefly and settles on your clothes. No one tends the fire. It continues until it cannot. Somewhere behind the wall, chanting rises and falls, steady, indifferent to the lane it borders. The stone underfoot is slick now. You shorten your steps. Others do not. A body lies against the wall, not placed carefully, not moved aside. People step around it by memory rather than sight. There is no pause long enough to confirm anything. The lane carries you out the other side, back toward wider streets, toward noise and dim light. Nothing marks the passage. Nothing needs to. The night has room for everything already. The city lowers its voice. Sounds thin out but do not disappear. Somewhere, a door closes and is barred from the inside. Lanterns gutter as oil runs low, their light shrinking back into itself. Footsteps still pass, fewer now, spaced farther apart, each one brief and unremarkable. You stand at the edge of a street where darkness fills the gaps the day left behind. Smoke hangs close to the ground. Water continues to move where the stone allows it, finding the same shallow paths it followed before dawn. A bell sounds once, then nothing answers it. Above the walls, the sky remains unchanged. Inside them, bodies settle where they can. Coughs return in the dark, counted by no one. Fires fade to embers. The streets do not empty, they only loosen their grip. By morning, the same doors will open the same distance. The same ground will be wet again. The same narrow spaces will close around whoever steps into them next. When you leave, nothing follows you out. The city stays, breathing at its own pace, waiting without watching.